Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Clutchcast. I'm Matt Schroyer, and I'm here with my new friend, Impact Driver.
It's Toolsday!
So, first things first, what is an impact driver? What is its purpose? What does it do? Well, as its name suggests, it is used to impact and drive things. Usually it's used to impact and drive screws into 2x4s and lumber on job sites. But luckily, in a pinch, it can be used for other things as well, such as potentially breaking loose nuts on a car. As you've probably noticed, cordless tools have gotten a lot better in the past 10, even 5 years. This particular one is powered by a 12-volt battery, lithium-ion, and it packs quite a charge too. And that's the case of more and more tools in my garage and probably your garage as well. A lot of tools not using cords anymore, either electrical cords or air hoses. But there is really kind of one drawback to all these different cordless tools, and that is sort of the battery form factor and kind of the battery ecosystem that goes around it. So this is again, a 12-volt Craftsman Nextec tool. It uses the same 12-volt batteries that you get in the Nextec line. And the Nextec line is actually fairly old. I started getting my Nextec tools about 5 years ago. And as you know, Craftsman, which was owned by Sears until sometime in 2017 when the Craftsman brand was sold off to Black & Decker, the parent company that owns the Craftsman brand, Sears, has not been doing well. So, I'm not sure whether it's just because the tools themselves weren't that popular, or more probably their parent company just was not doing very well. So these tools are actually, these Nextec tools are coming few and farther between, harder to find. Now, I mentioned the sort of the battery ecosystem because when you buy one tool with one battery, you probably get a charger with that, and the idea is that you pick up more of the similar tools that use the same battery, and until your entire garage is powered by these types of batteries, and maybe you have a couple of chargers sitting around too. So this isn't the only Nextec tool I have. I can actually show you what I have here. I've got this saw is a Nextec saw. I don't remember what this guy is called, but this is a cutting device we used around the house. It's a kind of a cutting multi-tool. And of course you got your sander. That's pretty common practice in these sort of battery ecosystems. And of course we have our Craftsman Nextec drill. Every battery ecosystem has a drill, and this one is no exception. As you can see, it's kind of beat up. It's been through a lot. It is frequently used in the house and probably needs refurbishing because it's just not as torquey as it used to be. But dependable, reliable. There you go. But I was surprised about this. The tool that I use most that use those 12-volt Nextec batteries is actually this guy. This is just a simple LED light. Turn it on. It uses the same rechargeable battery. No D cells, no C cells needed. A little difficult to get out. Hold on. There we go. A little difficult to get out, but very lightweight. You can set this on the floor. You can use it around the house. And again, when it runs out of batteries, you just charge it again. No big deal. It takes maybe 10 minutes to charge, and you don't have to worry about batteries exploding in a flashlight that you don't use that much. That's pretty cool. So that's really one of the big reasons why this particular tool. There are electric ratchets out there now. Milwaukee makes them, Makita makes them, and they all seem pretty good, pretty solid tools. But part of the problem is I've already got a whole bunch of these 12-volt batteries. I already have a whole bunch of 12-volt battery chargers from the Nextec system, and most importantly, I have a bunch of tools from the Nextec catalog of cordless tools. And well, if I went to one of those, then I would have to be putting a whole new tool ecosystem in my garage, and that just makes things more complicated. So I'm going to try this for a while, see how it does, before stepping up to something a little bit more specific for the jobs. This was kind of a missing component to my Nextec collection, and I've kind of put it off for a while. And I put it off because for a lot of the larger bolts, I would just use a good old-fashioned cordless impact wrench, which provides a whole bunch more torque. So I'll go ahead and show you that. Yeah, so this is that 18-volt rigid impact wrench that I typically use to break loose wheel bolts. You know, and this kept me happy for a long time in the garage. You know, if it was a wheel bolt or something torqued on quite a bit, I would have no problem using this. It provides 450 foot-pounds of torque to break things loose. In my experience, you really need a full charge to get that. There's a handy-dandy battery meter. As you can see, it's not fully charged at this time. But this has been really handy. You know, you use it for wheel nuts and a lot of the larger bolts that require more torque to loosen them. But as you can probably imagine, one drawback of this is its weight. Right, so this weighs a good 4.8 pounds, about 2,192 grams. And instead, now we can use this, the 12-volt impact driver, which is, I weighed it in at 1,054 grams, which comes in at 2.3 pounds, so less than half the weight. So that's a big difference, especially if you're swinging this around all day long. Now, of course, the Nextec 12-volt impact driver, smaller tool, lighter weight, doesn't have nearly as much power as that big impact wrench does, but it still can be pretty useful. It's rated at 810 inch-pounds, which translates to about 67 foot-pounds or 91 newton-meters of torque. So what does that mean practically, though? It's not nearly enough torque to, say, break loose a wheel nut or a wheel bolt. So what can you actually do with this? Well, nuts and bolts are generally torqued down to a specification of some kind, and that's depending on their size. So all things being equal, a larger bolt will require more force to be torqued down than a smaller bolt, which will require less force to be torqued down. And according to my shop manual, 91 newton meters should be enough to loosen pretty much any M10 bolt that you come across on the car. And that's actually a bolt with a 10 millimeter diameter, M10 bolt. M10 bolts are typically designed to mate with 17 millimeter sockets. But an important exception are the wheel bolts on the BMW, which are in fact M12 bolts that also happen to take a 17 millimeter socket. And those are designed to be torqued down to about, well, 140 newton meters. So this tool is not nearly enough to break those loose. Basically, most of the nuts and bolts that you come across in a car, with an important exception of those wheel nuts, that accept a 17 millimeter socket, you should theoretically be able to break those loose with this, as long as it's been torqued down to the proper specification in the first place, and you have a full charge in your battery. But I know what you're thinking, that's all just theory and that's good and fine, but what happens when you actually put this tool to use? How much force can it actually apply to break loose nuts and bolts? And, well, I'm going to put it to the test in the garage. I've got a wheel set up with the wheel nuts and on the BMW Roadster, and I'm going to go ahead and torque them down to various torques and try to see if this tool can break those loose, and that should give a pretty good indication of what this can actually do. Okay, so we are in the garage, and I've affixed a wheel and the wheel nuts to the back end of the Roadster here. This is the nut here that we're going to be testing our theories on, and what I've done is I've put it in just finger tight, and I'm going to go ahead and use my torque wrench here to torque it down to, let's just start at 25 foot-pounds and then work it up from there. Okay, we're starting it at 25 foot-pounds. Let's see if the tool can break this loose. This is the Tempt 1, 25 foot-pounds. There you go. As you see, no trouble at all getting that loose. So I'm just going to put it right back in don't tighten it down. I'm going to now tighten that bolt down to, let's go ahead and shoot for 40 foot-pounds. Tightening the tool down to 40 foot-pounds. Lock that into place. Torque wrench on. Alright, it clicked. Wheel nut has been torqued down to 40 foot-pounds. Now let's see if our tool, our impact driver, can break this loose. Alright, here we go. 40 foot-pounds. Doesn't look like it. Seems like 40 foot-pounds is beyond this device. So let's go ahead and back this up to, let's go ahead and try for 35 foot-pounds. Let's see how that does. Alright, set it for 35 foot-pounds. Lock this down. Let's go ahead and tighten. Testing at 35 foot-pounds. Let's give it a go. Well, it looks like it did it, and it also got the wheel nut stuck in there, so I'll go ahead and get this wheel nut out first. So 40 pounds no, 35 foot-pounds yes. Let's go ahead and crank that up just a couple of foot-pounds and see if we can get to, oh, you know, maybe, let's try for 38 foot-pounds. Alright, 38 foot-pounds. Well, not only did it not get it out, it's also nice and stuck. So, gotta break this loose. So 38 foot-pounds no. Let's see if we can take that down just 1 foot-pound to 37 foot-pounds. $37 foot-pound test. Here we go. Negative. $36 foot-pounds. But by now, you know, really, we've been using that battery so much that I wouldn't be surprised if we couldn't get it off or break that loose at 35 foot-pounds. But let's just try this. 36 foot-pounds. Let's see if this works. 36 foot-pounds. Nope, not doing it. So, it looks like, folks, that 35 foot-pounds is the maximum that you could get from the Craftsman Nextec impact driver when used as an impact wrench. So there you have it. Not a scientifically exhaustive experiment by any means, but using the tools that I had in the shop, which was the 3/8 inch Pittsburgh torque wrench, which is what you get at Harbor Freight. Using that Harbor Freight torque wrench, found that about 35 foot-pounds was about the limit of this tool on a nearly full charge. So 35 foot-pounds, that works out to about 47 Newton meters. Going back to the specifications for the different nuts and bolts, that should be about enough force to break loose any M8 nut or bolt. So really, you might find that this could break loose most bolts and nuts that you come across in a car that take a 13 millimeter socket or under, and that's what I have on this tool right now, actually, is a 13 millimeter socket. So much bigger than this, you probably won't have much luck, but anything smaller than 13 millimeter socket, you might have some pretty good luck on. I don't know. If you have a similar tool at home, let me know in the comments. I do actually think that's pretty impressive for this tool because, again, this is not an impact wrench. This is not totally designed to break loose nuts and bolts. In fact, most people that have a small 12-volt impact driver like this in their tool chest say that, really they go around and they go ahead and break those loose by hand with a good old-fashioned ratchet first, and then go along with this and just spin the rest of it off. Now, one last thing I thought I would mention about this tool is you notice that it does have the socket attached, but the tool doesn't come like that, right? So the impact driver, since it is originally meant to drive screws into the wall or into lumber, actually has or accepts a 1/4 inch hex shank, which is, the standard shank that you use for, Phillips or flathead screws. Now, to adapt your impact driver to drive a socket instead, you're going to need a 1/4 inch hex shank to 3/8 inch socket adapter. So that just goes in like that, like so. And then you just, put in any old 3/8 inch socket on, and ready to zip. I got my socket adapter at Ace Hardware, a 3/8 inch drive right here. You can go all the way down to a 1/4 inch drive, but 3/8 inch is a happy medium right there. You can also get a 1/4 inch hex shank to 1/2 inch adapter, but I think that's overkill and impractical, mainly because any socket of that size, 1/2 inch or above, that's actually, you're gonna need more torque to break those nuts and bolts loose than what you actually have in the tool. So 1/2 inch, way overkill. Stick with a 3/8 inch, it's a nice happy medium. So really, that's about it for me on this particular Tools Day. I want to thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this. I know I sure did. And we'll see you down the road.